I had been Charlotte's secretary for 9 years, working diligently and faithfully. Just when I was about to be promoted to vice president, she brought in her first love to replace me. She said he had a better education and was more capable than me. I looked at the woman I had loved for 10 years and was at a loss for words. Chapter 1. As soon as I walked into the office, everyone greeted me with smiles. Congratulations. Congratulations. From now on, we can't call you Secretary Law anymore. You'll be Vice President Law. The one who waited for 10 years has finally made it. Vice President Law. You'll have to take care of us from now on. Vice President Law. You should treat us to dinner tonight to celebrate. After all, we'll be working under you from now on. I looked at my colleagues' smiling faces and smiled back, saying, "It's not decided yet. It's too early to say such things." "Oh, come on. It's already decided. It's just a matter of going through the formalities." Vice President Law. You're just too modest. I waved my hand with a smile and walked towards the conference room. My colleagues weren't just flattering me. I had been with New Oriental for 10 years, ever since Charlotte started the company in her sophomore year of college. Though my title was secretary, I not only had to handle proposals, negotiations, and company development strategies, but also take care of her daily needs. You could say that without me, there would be no New Oriental, and Charlotte wouldn't be where she is today. This position of vice president was something I deserved. Suppressing the excitement in my heart, I walked into the conference room. The senior executives were already seated, but the atmosphere was completely different from outside. The room was eerily silent, and as I entered, I saw the concealed frustration and pity on the faces of the colleagues I had fought alongside for years. I paused and looked at Charlotte, who was sitting at the head of the table. Her slender fingers were interlocked on the table, and sitting beside her was a handsome man in a sharp suit. The two were sitting very close, their postures intimate. In that instant, my heart felt like it had plunged into ice water, but I still held onto a sliver of hope and asked quietly, "Charlotte, who is this?" Charlotte avoided my gaze and replied lightly, "This is Kevin, our company's new vice president. In a bit, you'll take him to HR to finalize the paperwork. As for his office space, let's put him next to mine." I stood there, feeling as if someone had slapped me in front of everyone, and the world spun around me. The department manager couldn't hold back anymore and slammed the table as he stood up. "Charlotte, what's the meaning of this? Didn't we agree that the vice president position was going to Edward?" "Exactly." The HR manager frowned. "We all know how much Edward has contributed over the years. You can't just replace him like this. It's not right." These were colleagues I had worked with for years, and we had always gotten along well. Charlotte's face darkened, and her eyes swept across the room. After a moment, she spoke with a hint of anger in her voice. "Am I the president, or are you?" The department manager didn't back down. "You're the president, but the company doesn't belong to you alone. You can't just bring someone in and give them the vice president position. How is that fair?" Charlotte sneered. "Kevin has a master's degree in finance and economics from Columbia. He's better educated than Edward, and he's more capable. I'm doing this for the good of the company." You're all thinking with your emotions, but a company can't be run on sentiment. I looked at Kevin's familiar face and let out a cold laugh. "Charlotte, stop lying. All this talk is just because he's your first love, isn't it?" Charlotte and I had known each other since high school. Others might not know, but I had a deep impression of Kevin. He was Charlotte's first love. Back then, they had an intense relationship, but they broke up because Charlotte wanted to stay in China to start her business while Kevin wanted to study abroad. Over the years, men had come and gone in Charlotte's life, but none of them had lasted as long as Kevin. Having been so bluntly exposed, Charlotte's expression became a bit awkward. She leaned back in her large leather chair and looked at me with contempt. "Yes, Kevin is my first love, but where am I wrong? His education is better than yours, and he's more capable. Edward, you just have to accept reality." Chapter 2. The meeting ended on a sour note, with me storming out to replace me at my promotion meeting without any prior notice. I had no idea why Charlotte had to treat me like this. She could have told me in advance, but instead, she chose the most humiliating way possible. Duncan, the department manager, was someone I personally recruited. We had worked together for 7 years, and he was furious. He came over to my desk, sarcastically complaining, "I heard that Kevin caused some trouble abroad, got fired, and his reputation was ruined. He couldn't find a job, so he came crawling back here. Did you see her behavior? She doesn't care about any of us now, only fawning over her little lover. It's disgusting." Seriously, I didn't say anything, staring blankly at my desk. It was old, worn from years of use, with scratches along the edges. After 9 years at the company, I still didn't have my own office. Back then, Charlotte said space was tight, and since I was always running to her office anyway, giving me a separate office didn't make sense. It would be better to allocate it to someone else. I naively agreed. But now, Kevin got his own office the moment he arrived, complete with luxurious mahogany furniture and the most expensive high-end Mac. I finally understood. Everything else had just been an excuse. The truth was, Charlotte didn't think I was worth it. "Why don't you just quit?" Duncan suggested after taking a sip of water. "We'll all leave with you. This company is doomed anyway." I was silent for a moment before softly replying, "Can you really let go?" He froze, falling silent. We had been fighting side by side since the company's early days. To us, this was more than just a job. New Oriental was like a child I had raised with my own hands. I couldn't let it go. My colleagues were even more upset than I was about Kevin's appointment as vice president, especially the senior management. We had worked together for so long, and without any major conflicts of interest. Our bonds had grown strong over the years. They couldn't directly oppose Charlotte, but behind the scenes, they expressed their dissatisfaction. Kevin's work didn't go smoothly at all. Duncan, who was supposed to coordinate with him, refused to give him any important clients, only passing him trivial or particularly difficult ones. The other departments were just as uncooperative, handing over documents as if squeezing toothpaste, only when Kevin explicitly asked for them. Charlotte angrily confronted them, only to hear, "I didn't know what he needed, but I gave him everything he asked for, didn't I?" With no better options, Charlotte turned her attention to me. She called me into her office and said tactfully, "You've worked hard over the years. Even though you're called a secretary, you've had to do everything." I looked at her, expressionless. "Just say what you want." Charlotte was clearly irritated by my bluntness but held her temper. "Now that Kevin's here, you won't have to be so busy anymore. You can hand over all your clients to him and focus on being a secretary." She said it lightly, as if it were nothing important. I couldn't believe it. "What did you just say?" The clients I handled were long-standing ones I had worked hard for years to secure. She knew exactly what sacrifices I had made to win them over. Back when the company was just starting, we had no resources and had to snatch clients from larger companies. It was incredibly difficult. I still remember when we had just graduated, and a 50-something, pot-bellied client took us to a karaoke bar, pointing at a row of drinks and flashing a yellow-toothed grin at Charlotte. "If you drink a glass, I'll sign $1 million contract." Don't say I'm not generous, this drink's worth it, right? Charlotte, proud as ever, couldn't stand the insult and angrily dragged me away, but I knew that if we didn't land this deal, our company's cash flow would collapse. All our hard work would go to waste. I gave her a reassuring smile, sat down, and faced the client. "Brother, she can't hold her liquor, but I'll drink with you." I still remember the burning taste of that whiskey. Its caramel color hit a fiery heat that seemed to ignite my insides as it traveled down to my stomach. I couldn't handle alcohol, but I downed 8 glasses that night. I ended up in the bathroom, vomiting so violently it felt like my organs were being torn apart. My face streaked with tears, but I still clung to that client, making him sign the contract on the spot. Impressed by my persistence, he gave me a thumbs up. "Brother, you're tough. I've never seen anything like it." Right then and there, he signed a $10 million deal with New Oriental. After he signed the last word, I passed out and ended up in the hospital that night. They pumped my stomach, and I spent the whole night on the brink of death. When I opened my eyes at dawn, Charlotte was sitting by my bedside, her eyes red from crying. I gave her a weak smile. "Why are you crying? Our baby is safe now." At that time, she used to call New Oriental our baby. I used to feel embarrassed, but secretly, I was happy every time she used that term. It made me feel like we shared something special. I loved Charlotte, and I knew she knew that too. Back then, she wasn't as composed as she is now. She choked on her words. "Why did you do that? So what if we didn't get it? You almost. She couldn't finish. Her head dropped, her body trembling, and she whimpered, "Don't scare me like that ever again." To me, it had been worth it. Because of that incident, I developed chronic stomach problems that persist to this day. After that, similar situations happened several more times. Charlotte was too young and proud back then, and I always had to step in front of her. I loved her, and I was willing to do whatever it took to protect her and our company. I was so foolish back then, thinking it was a blessing to suffer for her. But the same Charlotte, who once swore she wouldn't let me down, was now pushing me out of the company's inner circle. My voice trembled. "Charlotte, you know how much I've sacrificed for this company. Why are you doing this to me?" Charlotte frowned, irritated. "I know you've sacrificed a lot for the company, but who hasn't? Is there any point in constantly bringing it up? Kevin's new here, and he's still learning the ropes. Just hand over your clients to him. You're a secretary. After all, what do you need clients for?" "No way," I said coldly. Charlotte looked taken aback, as if she hadn't expected me to refuse. "If I were you, I wouldn't make things so difficult for myself." Kevin entered the room. He walked over to Charlotte's side, sneering at me. "Don't think just because you've been here longer that you can forget your place. This company belongs to Charlotte. Without her, you're nothing." He narrowed his eyes and added sarcastically, "If you're smart enough to cooperate, you can keep your job. Otherwise, I'll fire you, and you'll have to pack your bags and leave." I didn't respond. I just looked at Charlotte and asked softly, "Is this how you feel too?" Charlotte's face remained unchanged as she said, Kevin is the vice president of the company. He has the authority to decide personnel matters. After a long pause, I nodded and said calmly, got it. I tore off my employee badge and tossed it onto Charlotte's desk. You don't have to fire me. To hell with it. I quit. Chapter 3. As soon as I stepped outside, I saw a few people eavesdropping near the door. Duncan was furious. How could he be so shameless? I'm done too. I'm leaving with you. The others looked devastated. Law. You built New Oriental from the ground up. What will we do if you leave? We can't really work under that guy who got in through the back door, can we? I forced a smile and patted Duncan on the shoulder. Let it go. You still have loans to pay off. I'll go ahead for now, but once I'm doing well, I'll bring you over. On the day I left New Oriental, it snowed. I held my things and looked back. The building was shrouded in falling snow, glowing brightly amidst the gloom. I don't know if it was the snowflakes getting in my eyes, but suddenly, my vision blurred. This was the place I had worked for 9 years. I had watched it grow from our dorm room, then to a small rental near the school, then a 2-floor storefront, and finally, a high-rise office in the city center. I still remember the day we first moved in, sitting on the empty floor, crying and laughing as we celebrated the bright future ahead. I was willing to sacrifice everything to protect it, but now, in just a few short years, I had to say goodbye. After I left, I heard that Kevin tried to assert his authority by holding a meeting, warning everyone that if they didn't cooperate with him, they would end up like me, packing up and leaving. Duncan, without giving him any face, mocked him on the spot. What kind of end? Being hired with a high salary as vice president by a bigger company. Kevin's face turned green, and the meeting fell apart. He was an idiot. Someone like me, a versatile talent, was always highly sought after. Even back when New Oriental was still small, many big companies tried to poach me, offering salaries starting at $1 million a year, but I turned them all down, putting my heart and soul into Charlotte and New Oriental, working for mere thousands a month, yet finding contentment in her presence. But now, I didn't need to hold back anymore. The day after I resigned, I called Victoria, the CEO of New Oriental's biggest rival, New World Group. I heard you're short of people. Do you think I'm up for the job? Victoria didn't hesitate. What I lack is a vice president. If you join, you can start tomorrow. She didn't make empty promises. The very next day, she personally escorted me through the paperwork and introduced me to all the departments. Edward is now New World's vice president. His words carry the same weight as mine. Over the next few days, report your work to him, and be sure to cooperate with him fully. That evening, Victoria threw a welcome party for me. I raised my glass to her and said, President Liu, it's an honor to work with everyone at New World. I look forward to a successful partnership. Victoria smiled charmingly, her eyes sparkling with mischief. No, the honor is all New World's for having you, Mr. Law. The work environment was much better than I had anticipated, and I finally had my own spacious office. No one at New World gave me trouble for coming from New Oriental. In fact, I had a decent reputation in the industry, and they were already aware of my abilities. Everything was going smoothly, even beyond my expectations, until I received my first major project. When I opened the file, I was stunned. It was the same marketing collaboration with a listed company that I had been working on back at New Oriental. The deal was substantial and crucial for several companies in the city. Charlotte hadn't trusted anyone else with it and had personally assigned me to oversee it. I had spent half a month working on the proposal until I was satisfied with it. Given how much Charlotte valued Kevin, this project must have been handed over to him by now. A fire ignited in my heart. This was my first major project after leaving New Oriental, and my chance to prove myself. This time, I was going to show them exactly what New Oriental had become without me. Chapter 4. On the day of the negotiation, Victoria took me along. Before we even entered, we ran into Charlotte, who had arrived at the same time, with Kevin following closely behind. When he saw me, he frowned slightly. Charlotte's expression was complicated. She looked at me, her lips moving as if she wanted to say something. I walked past her without sparing her a glance. Once the meeting began, we sat across from each other. As I looked at Charlotte, a flood of mixed emotions filled my heart. This was the first time I wasn't sitting by her side, and I never expected to be sitting across from her. Fate sure has a twisted sense of humor. The project lead adjusted his glasses and said, "This project is very important to us, and we appreciate you all being here. Why don't we start by having each of you present your proposals, and we'll make a decision after that." Kevin eagerly stood up, picked up the proposal, and began his presentation. New Oriental has a strong advantage in precision marketing. You can see here our previous successful cases, including the campaign we did for Jingy Catering. In just 6 months, their market share, ad spend, and sales all significantly increased, along with several other. I kept a blank expression as I listened. These were all cases I had worked on, and it was shameless of him to present them as his own. But as he went on, Something didn't feel right. The content of New Oriental's proposal sounded more and more familiar. This was the proposal I had written before I left. A surge of anger rose in my chest as I turned my gaze toward Charlotte. I couldn't believe she could be this shameless, giving Kevin the proposal I had painstakingly worked on for so long. I had given that proposal to Duncan before I left, but Charlotte must have snatched it for Kevin. I didn't know if I felt more angry or heartbroken. I had been Charlotte's secretary for 9 years, working diligently and faithfully. Even if she didn't like me, at the very least, we were once friends. How could she stoop so low? Charlotte seemed to feel guilty and didn't dare meet my gaze. In that moment, I was utterly disappointed in her. Kevin finished his presentation, and I noticed a look of satisfaction on the project lead's face as he praised. New Oriental never fails to impress. This is an excellent proposal, Mr. Liu. Kevin shamelessly accepted the compliment. Thank you. Now, let's hear from New World. Victoria nodded at me, and I took my proposal to the front. This proposal had been put together in a rush, and I couldn't say it was better than the one Kevin had. After hearing me out, the project lead simply nodded. Well then, wait, I interrupted. I have a question for Mr. Kevin. Just now, you mentioned that New Oriental has 18 marketing branches in S City. But as far as I know, New Oriental actually only has 8. So, where did the other 10 come from? This was a mistake I had made when I originally wrote the proposal, accidentally inputting the wrong number. But after I left, no one had corrected it. Kevin froze, flipping through the proposal in panic under the project lead's scrutinizing gaze. The more flustered he became, the harder it was for him to find the data. After all, this wasn't his work. He was just parroting what was written. I let out a cold laugh. Can't you remember the data from your own proposal? Or are you deliberately exaggerating to deceive us into this project? I pressed him harder. Is this how you approach collaboration, with such irresponsibility? How can the client trust you? Kevin was thoroughly rattled. He gritted his teeth and glared at me. It's you. You did this on purpose. I shrugged and replied innocently. This is New Oriental's proposal. What does it have to do with me? The project lead frowned. Falsifying data was a serious issue in the business world. He spoke sternly. Mr. Liu, what exactly is going on here? Kevin stammered, unable to explain. Charlotte quickly tried to smooth things over. Sorry, Mr. Zhang. It was a mistake made by our intern. The correct number is 8. Our reputation at New Oriental has always been reliable. Please take a look at our previous case studies. Before she could finish, I interrupted coldly. All those previous cases were done by me. What do they have to do with you? Jingyi Foods, tea products, Aurora Women's Wear, every single one of those marketing campaigns was designed by me. Edward, how dare you claim them as your own? Victoria smiled at the perfect moment and added, Mr. Zhang, I forgot to mention, our company's vice president, Mr. Edward, was previously employed by New Oriental. All of the successful campaigns you've seen were his handiwork. If you choose to work with New World, Mr. Law will personally oversee the marketing for this project. As we left the building, Charlotte's face was as dark as coal. The project lead directly rejected New Oriental's proposal and signed with us. We are extremely disappointed with New Oriental. Mr. Zhang didn't mince words, coldly stating, you've been too irresponsible. You don't even know how many branches you have. We won't be considering any future collaborations with New Oriental. This project would determine which company could dominate the S-City market, and it was crucial for both companies. Charlotte had put a lot of effort into this project, and the failure would hit her hard. When we left, she looked at me, her tone filled with reproach. Edward, you didn't hold back at all. I raised an eyebrow. Business is war. Surely, President Jean isn't still thinking about showing mercy. She clenched her fists and frowned at me. So, a vice president position was enough for you to sell out our relationship. You're really pragmatic. I stared at Charlotte, realizing that she was genuinely upset and thought I had done something wrong. I found it incredibly absurd. I was so angry that I actually laughed. A smirk spread across my face. Charlotte, it's fine to be useless, but being both useless and shameless is a problem. When I was around, you relied on me. You leaned on me while trying to suppress me. And then you bring in some. I glanced disdainfully at Kevin. Incompetent fool to take my place as vice president. And now you want to call me pragmatic. You disgust me. I wiped the smile off my face and enunciated each word slowly. Charlotte's face turned pale, and she opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. She looked at me in disbelief, as if she couldn't comprehend how the men who had always stood by her side could suddenly turn against her. I didn't look back at her again and walked away. From the day she let Kevin push me out of New Oriental, my last shred of feeling for her had been completely wiped away. These past 10 years have been nothing but a dream. Now that I've woken up, it's time to move on with my life. Chapter 5. A while later, Duncan called me, complaining, I'm really at my wit's end with Kevin. Wasn't he supposed to be some Columbia graduate, a top student? Why does he seem like an idiot to me? He put together a proposal full of holes, and the numbers don't even add up. He didn't let us review it, like he was scared we'd steal it. The client saw the proposal and was furious, refusing to sign the contract. I spent nearly 6 months working on that deal, and this guy ruined it. He's such a jinx. Duncan took a sip of water and continued, "You have no idea. In the last few months, he's offended almost all of our clients. The company's performance has dropped by more than 40%. After hanging up, I sat in silence. To be honest, I saw this coming from the moment I left. Over the years, I had done everything for Charlotte. I'm the type who, when I care for someone, I give my all, to the point where I'd practically carve out my heart for them. I gave everything I had, but now, I finally understood that things that come too easily are never cherished. I had protected Charlotte too well. 4 years. All the projects she handled were ones I carefully prepared and perfected. Her success had always been backed by my support. Without me, she was nothing. I wanted to move on, to never look back. But in S-City, there were only a few big companies, and we often had to cross paths. In late October, Victoria brought back a project. This company is from Beijing. They're pretty big, and they're looking to launch a marketing campaign. Take a look. After researching it for a while, I said seriously, we can't take on this project. Look, the company is quite large, and their budget is high. If their information and products are fine, why wouldn't they promote in Beijing? Why come all the way here? To put it bluntly, our market here isn't on the same level as Beijing's. You should investigate their products. I suspect something's wrong. A few days later, Victoria returned with a serious expression. You were right. I had someone look into it. Their previous products had issues, and this company is just a shell trying to clear out substandard stock. If it weren't for your vigilance, we would have been screwed. I thought the matter had passed, but when I ran into Charlotte again at an industry association meeting, I found out that they had taken the project. Kevin, standing next to Charlotte, sneered at me. Edward, do you really think New Oriental can't survive without you? We just landed a huge project, much bigger than anything you've ever done. You were just lucky before, riding on New Oriental's coattails. Don't think the world stops turning without you. I looked at Charlotte, hesitating to speak. Out of spite, I didn't want to tell her the truth about the project, but New Oriental was a company I had built from the ground up, and I couldn't stand the thought of it falling apart. Charlotte misunderstood my silence, and she looked at me intently. Edward, I can live just fine without you. I don't need you. I swallowed the words I wanted to say and chuckled softly. Is that so? Well, that's great, then. Over the next few days, Charlotte and Kevin were visibly riding high. This was the first major project they had completed since I left, and they were eager to flaunt it. All of New Oriental's marketing teams were working overtime to promote the product, pushing it hard. But the higher you climb, the harder you fall when Judgment Day comes. One chilly autumn evening, the first post exposing the product hit the internet. In their marketing campaign, they had started promoting a baby formula. However, many infants who consumed the formula began experiencing severe vomiting and diarrhea, ending up in the hospital. At first, Charlotte and her team managed to suppress the posts by throwing money at the problem. But as more and more posts surfaced, things quickly spiraled out of control. The situation reached a breaking point in November when 2 toddlers, just over a year old, suffered respiratory failure after drinking the formula. Both died shortly after being rushed to the hospital. It was like a hornet's nest had been kicked. Chaos erupted. People were outraged. Every news outlet and website reported on the tragedy, and the company's shady practices were fully exposed. New Oriental, which had promoted the product, got caught in the crossfire and was thoroughly scrutinized. Promoting such a heartless product, doesn't the boss worry about earning money but not living long enough to spend it? How could a product like this get promoted? There must be some shady dealings. This needs a thorough investigation. This kind of corrupt company needs to be shut down. In no time, New Oriental became the target of public outrage. Most of the clients Kevin had alienated during his tenure had already left, with some of them following me to New World. The few that remained quickly terminated their contracts after this scandal, unwilling to risk further association. Charlotte was in a complete panic, begging anyone she could for help, but to no avail. Just when I thought New Oriental was about to learn a harsh lesson, Duncan suddenly came to me. In just a few days, he looked much more worn out, with dark circles so deep I feared he might collapse on the spot. I was taken aback. It can't be that bad, can it? Is the situation really that serious? Duncan rubbed his face but said nothing. After a long silence, he buried his head in his hands, his voice filled with mixed emotions. Edward, New Oriental is finished. I frowned. Once the storm passes, it should be fine. The main blame falls on the production company. After all, Duncan let out a bitter laugh. It's not just this. You don't know, New Oriental's been a mess these past few days. After the incident, that idiot Kevin, in his desperation, went to an old acquaintance for advice. The guy asked him to bring out the company's files so they could better diagnose the problem. Isn't that leaking trade secrets? I was shocked. Exactly, Duncan sighed, rubbing his forehead in exhaustion. Kevin was too dumb to realize. He actually handed over the files. Turns out, the guy wasn't trying to help. He was trying to take us down. Now, all of New Oriental's proposals have been leaked, including the ones we were working on for clients. We're being sued, and there's not nearly enough money in the accounts to cover the damages. This time, New Oriental might really be done for. We spent years building it up, and it's about to collapse so quickly. I said nothing. Honestly, I didn't know what to say. I had poured nearly 10 years of my life into New Oriental. Seeing it fall apart like this left me feeling conflicted. Why did Charlotte have to bring back such an incompetent person to be vice president? Duncan looked baffled. I thought she liked Kevin, but they don't seem to be together. Last time, Kevin asked her out for dinner, and she didn't even go. I don't know. I shook my head. I would never understand what Charlotte was thinking. And now, there was no need to. As we were eating, Duncan suddenly got a video call. When he answered, chaos erupted on the other end, with people shouting so loudly that we could barely hear them. What's going on? Duncan was confused. What's all this noise? Manager Law. The new intern sounded like they were about to cry. The police came to take Vice President Kevin. They said he leaked trade secrets and is being sued. The whole company's in chaos. Please come back. I looked at the screen, seeing New Oriental's office packed with angry clients, some of whom I recognized. They were all shouting at Kevin, spitting venomous words. We entrusted you with our product details for marketing under a confidentiality agreement. And now this. What's the meaning of this? Yeah, us too. You promised there would be no leaks. Where's Secretary Law? Nothing like this ever happened when Law was here. The moment you showed up, our product details were leaked everywhere. What's wrong with you people at New Oriental? Kevin's face was ashen. Panicking, he stammered. I didn't know he was a scammer. How can you blame me? You should be going after him. He kept repeating those same two sentences like a broken record, but the clients were quickly losing patience. Don't give us that crap. We gave the information to you, not him. Why would we go after him? You can explain it to the police. Let's see how well that excuse holds up. With that, the clients started dragging him away. Kevin, terrified, reached out to Charlotte. Charlotte, save me. I did all of this for you, for the company. Buffed. The HR manager sneered. Shameless. You've nearly run this company into the ground, and now you want us to save you. Our small temple can't handle a god like you. Get lost already. Kevin looked around in desperation, only to find that everyone was staring coldly at him. The once thriving company was now in shambles, and everyone was on the verge of losing their jobs. Who could still look kindly upon him? Charlotte, he begged, his voice trembling, but Charlotte merely glanced at him, her eyes filled with disgust. Kevin froze for a moment before being dragged away. Chapter 6. I didn't have to go out of my way to find out what happened next. The news spread quickly throughout the companies in the city. Every business took New Oriental's downfall as a lesson, launching internal reviews and confidentiality training to prevent a similar disaster. In the end, New Oriental couldn't be saved. The compensation was too much, and the company's finances couldn't hold up. Even after Charlotte poured her own money into the company, it was impossible to turn the tide. Eventually, New Oriental was sold off at a rock-bottom price. Everything Charlotte had painstakingly built over the years was finally gone. Kevin was sentenced to 3 years in prison for leaking trade secrets. Before going in, I heard he was still shouting that it wasn't his fault, but no one paid attention to him. Not even Charlotte visited him again. I took a day off from work, unsure of what I was doing, and just wandered down the streets aimlessly. Before I realized it, I found myself standing in front of New Oriental's now dark and empty building. The sign had been removed, leaving the facade bare. The lights were still on inside, but it felt hollow without the New Oriental logo. I didn't even know how, but I had ended up here again. It was a cold, gray winter evening. The wind howled, biting into my skin, and the sky loomed dark and heavy above. It was the same kind of weather as the day I left New Oriental, but now, there were no bright lights to greet me. I stood at the edge of the street, hands in my pockets, staring at the building until my eyes began to ache. From the age of 20 to 29, I had poured my entire youth into this company. I watched it grow, from a joke shared among a few college students into a billion-dollar enterprise. It had once been my dream, something I believed in, something I was willing to dedicate my entire life to. I never thought I would witness its collapse so soon. I blew warm air onto my freezing hands and ducked into a small wonton shop nearby. The shop was tiny and tucked away in a quiet corner of the street. Few knew about it, and most of the customers were regulars. The owner recognized me and wiped down a table, greeting me with a warm smile. Long time no see. You've been busy with work lately. I opened my mouth to reply, but only managed, yeah, really busy. Still want the mild spice? I nodded and sat down at one of the greasy, worn tables. No matter how much they tried to clean, They could never seem to get the table spotless, but the food here was always fantastic. In the early years, when Charlotte and I were just starting out and money was tight, we used to come here. We'd order a few skewers and share a couple of beers. She couldn't hold her liquor, and after one bottle, her face would turn red, and she'd start talking nonsense. When we ring the bell on NASDAQ, we'll do it together. I laughed at her back then. Ringing the bell? You're more like the bell yourself. We don't even have any clients yet. She would just laugh, her eyes shimmering in the dim light from the cheap incandescent bulb. Once we ring the bell, we'll. The shop was too noisy, and her voice was too soft. I couldn't catch the rest. We'll do what? But she didn't finish. She just smiled. It hadn't even been that many years. Now, I sat alone in the same spot, drinking beer, my heart heavy with a mix of bitterness and sorrow. How had things ended up like this? The door curtain rustled as someone came in, bringing with them a gust of cold wind. The person sat across from me. The shop owner chuckled. You two used to always come together. Then you started coming in alone. I thought you'd broken up. But here you are again. That's nice. Charlotte didn't correct him. Boss, bring us a case of beer. Right away. She sat down as if nothing had happened, picking up the beer I had placed on the table and taking a sip. The icy liquid, full of carbonation, made her frown tightly. I couldn't resist a jab. What's wrong? President Jean had too much fine liquor to handle plain beer now. Charlotte didn't answer. After a long silence, she lowered her head and spoke softly. Edward, do you think I'm useless? That I'm a complete failure? I let out a cold laugh. Is that even a question? She forced a bitter smile. New Oriental is gone. I couldn't save it. I sold it. I know. I always thought that even without you, I could make it. Her voice was quiet, filled with a sadness I had never heard before. I thought I didn't need your protection anymore. I took a sip of my beer, trying to swallow down the bitterness in my heart. I had ordered quite a few skewers, but Charlotte didn't touch any of them. She just kept drinking. She was always a lightweight, and she was drinking fast. Soon, her eyes were clouded with drunkenness. For a moment, in her tired face, with her perfect makeup slightly smudged, I saw a glimpse of the young Charlotte who used to wear a simple white t-shirt, always talking about taking the company public. That Charlotte had long disappeared. Now, this Charlotte was far from ringing any bells. She was more likely to bury me at this point. I could only see the faint shadow of the person she used to be, brought out by the alcohol. Edward, do you know why I brought Kevin back to be vice president? I thought for a moment. You felt threatened by me, didn't you? It was something I had figured out later. We were both adults. No one still believed in those fairy tales about first love or unforgettable romances. Even if she did have feelings for Kevin, she wouldn't have jeopardized the company over something like that. She must have thought that my influence in the company had grown too strong, threatening her position as CEO. That's why she pushed me out. In the adult world, it's always about self-interest, isn't it? Charlotte laughed, but it was more painful than crying. No, it wasn't that. I just wanted to prove to you that I, Charlotte, could stand on my own without your protection. Do you remember the time you were forced to drink? How could I forget? Even now, my stomach still hurts late at night. You couldn't drink back then either. She gazed at me, though it seemed like she was looking far into the past. When they wheeled you into the emergency room, the doctor gave me a critical condition notice. You don't know how scared I was. I thought, I don't need the company. I don't need to be an entrepreneur. I just want you to be okay. I didn't know if it was the bitterness of the beer or something else, but her words made me feel like I was on the verge of tears. Charlotte downed the beer in her hand and crushed the can with trembling fingers. Her eyes were red. Back then, I felt so useless, needing you to protect me like that. I lowered my voice. I did it willingly. I liked you back then. I just wanted you to be okay. I couldn't stand seeing you suffer. And do you think I could stand it? She suddenly retorted. All these years, I never responded to you, not because I didn't like you, but because. She lowered her head, her voice laced with pain. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't think I had the ability to stand by your side. How could I say I loved you? I kept pushing myself, thinking that one day I'd be able to lighten your load, to help you. She choked up, her voice breaking. I just didn't want you to have to shield me anymore. She was almost 30 now, wearing an expensive Chanel suit, yet sitting in a roadside food stall, sobbing uncontrollably. I took another sip of beer, feeling the cold liquid spread warmth through my stomach. After a while, I spoke. Don't make it sound so noble. You might have had a bit of that in mind, but wasn't your ambition the real driving force? Charlotte, I know you too well. You're too proud of a woman. You couldn't stand being outshone by me, always standing in my shadow. That's why you pushed me out. Even if it wasn't Kevin, it would have been someone else. There was no place for me in New Oriental anymore. Charlotte fell silent, not saying another word. I finished my last bottle of beer and stood up. Boss, she's paying. The owner smiled. Got it. I picked up my coat and lifted the curtain at the door. Outside, it had started snowing. Large flakes danced in the wind, glowing softly under the streetlight's warm yellow light. Behind me, Charlotte called out to me, her voice trembling, "Edward, if I said I knew I was wrong, would you come back?" I didn't answer. I let the curtain fall behind me and walked into the snowstorm. Chapter 7. In late January, just as I was preparing to resign, Duncan called me. His voice was tired and carried an inexplicable weight. "Charlotte was in a car accident. Is it serious?" I gripped the cup in my hand tightly. Duncan was silent for a long time before he quietly said, "She's lost a leg. They had to amputate. Her fingers were severed too, although they reattached them. The doctor said she'll likely only be able to perform light activities in the future. She won't be able to carry anything heavy." My mind went blank, and I asked, dazed, "How did this happen?" "She went out drinking, then drove on the highway. She was drunk and crashed," Duncan said somberly. "New Oriental is gone. She's probably the one taking it the hardest. If you have time, maybe you should go see her." After hanging up the phone, I still couldn't believe it. I sat at my desk for the rest of the afternoon, unable to focus. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could picture was Charlotte's face covered in blood. For someone as proud as her, being disabled for life, how would she ever accept that? But after thinking about it for a long time, I decided not to visit her. Charlotte and I had been in competition for so long. In her current state, she definitely wouldn't want me to see her at her lowest. Our relationship had run its course. From meeting as teenagers to growing tired of each other, it had come to an end. This complicated, fragile bond, full of too many emotions, was shattered before we could even speak about it. Did she ever love me? Perhaps she did, but that love couldn't withstand her pride and stubbornness. "It ends here," I thought as I looked out at the sunset, glowing red like blood. "It was a mistake from the start. It's time to stop." When I handed in my resignation, Victoria did everything she could to convince me to stay. "Is there something wrong with the company's benefits? If there's anything you're unhappy about, let me know. I'll fix it." I smiled and shook my head. "The company has treated me well, and so have you, President Liu. I'm just a bit tired. I want to take a break for a while." Victoria sighed regretfully. "Then after you've rested, you must come back. New World's doors will always be open for you." In the following months, I traveled everywhere: Chengdu, Hangzhou, Inner Mongolia, Tibet, abroad. I visited the Maldives, Egypt, toured Europe, and even made my way to Antarctica. All of my best years had been spent working. After everything that had happened recently, I suddenly realized that I had never truly enjoyed life. So, I indulged myself, walking barefoot on the fluorescent beaches of foreign lands, galloping across endless grasslands, and losing myself in the vibrant northern lights under Iceland's night sky. Life was more than just work, and now, I finally discovered a new kind of happiness. In the heat of August, Duncan sent me a message on WeChat. "Haven't you had enough? You're practically a travel influencer now, making us all jealous with your daily posts. Isn't it time for you to come back and get back to the grind?" I laughed and teased, "You lost your job, but you're still itching to work like a wage slave. You're incorrigible." Duncan chuckled. "Damn right. So, when are you coming back? The guys are all waiting to start over with you." I glanced down at the suitcase in my hand and smiled slightly. "Clean yourself up and wait. I've just landed. This time, I'm definitely taking you guys to ring the bell on NASDAQ." In the distance, the sun began to rise, its rays filling the sky with a golden light. At the annual conference of Penguin Technology, I had intended to announce my relationship with the CEO's girlfriend in front of everyone. Her long-lost first love stood up from the audience and, with pride, said, "Grace, I can finally stand by your side openly." Grace, my girlfriend, gave no explanation. Instead, she smiled and embraced him, introducing him to everyone. "This is Oscar, who will be the chief scientist for our latest quantum computing project." The applause was thunderous, and everyone was congratulating this perfect couple. Grace noticed my emotionless face and quickly gave me a subtle glance. "Bruno, don't look like that. Do you have an issue?" I gently nodded, then threw the chief scientist's badge into the trash can right on the spot. "Of course I have an issue. Since Professor Oscar is so outstanding, why don't we just hold the wedding today and make everyone happy?" Chapter 1. Everyone was stunned when they saw me throw away the badge. After all, over the years, I had poured my heart and soul into the quantum computing project, even to the point of developing serious health issues. But soon, it seemed everyone understood what was going on, and they all gave me thumbs up, calling me magnanimous. Only Grace Lee, standing on the stage, had a terrifyingly dark look in her eyes. In the face of her gaze, I couldn't be bothered to explain anymore. Grace despised office relationships. We had been married for 5 years, and she never mentioned it to anyone. I had asked many times to make our relationship public, but she always said that as CEO, she had to set an example. She promised that once the quantum computer project succeeded, she would tell everyone. But now she had given everything to someone else. Seeing the admiration in everyone's eyes toward Oscar, Grace finally couldn't hold back and spoke. "Bruno, what are you making a fuss about this time? I smiled faintly and replied, I'd rather miss 1,000 opportunities than betray one person. I had given my all, but it couldn't compete with a single word from another. I said no more and turned to leave. This success in research was the result of sleepless nights and my full dedication. It was only through leveraging all my connections that we managed to break through the core issues of quantum computing in just 3 years. I had collapsed countless times in the lab, and all of it was for her glory today. Now, my heart was as cold as ashes, and I had no intention of helping her or anyone else anymore, though the project was nearing completion. Even if I gave Oscar 5 more years, with his theoretical, armchair approach, he'd never be able to finish what was left. I walked to the underground parking lot and got on the small electric scooter that Grace, in her great generosity, had bought for me. I couldn't help but bitterly smile. For 5 years, the company's finances had been in her hands. I had asked countless times to buy a car, but she always refused. The company already provides a car. Why waste money? Are you trying to keep up with others? But for 5 years, she had never let me ride in her car, citing the need to avoid suspicion. I had no complaints, thinking she was just being considerate of the company. But the day Oscar returned to the country, she immediately bought him a Porsche. And that's when I understood. It was all because she didn't have me in her heart. My heart was dead, and just as I was about to leave, a brand new Porsche blocked my path. Oscar rolled down the window, his face filled with disdain. Bruno, with your pathetic appearance, do you really think Grace will acknowledge you? It's laughable. Luckily, it was me that Grace announced today. If it were you, the entire tech world would be laughing their heads off. He mocked me from his high horse. This was his usual tactic, provoke me, then play the victim, trying to create a rift between Grace and me. In the past, most of our arguments had been instigated by him. Now, I couldn't be bothered to engage. The next second, Grace rushed out, and Oscar immediately swerved the steering wheel, crashing the car into a nearby pillar. Bruno, I'm sorry, I didn't see you here. I know you're upset that I overshadowed you, but you shouldn't have blocked my way. If anything happened, I'd feel guilty for life. He quickly got out of the car, pretending to apologize. I didn't want to waste time arguing, so I tried to leave on my scooter, but Grace kicked me to the ground. If you want to die, stay far away and stop bothering Oscar. If she had just looked at the security footage, she would know who was lying, but she refused to look. In that moment, my heart turned to ash. Oscar pretended to help me up, but I impatiently pushed him away. He immediately feigned injury and fell to the ground. It was a pathetic performance, but unfortunately, some people were easily fooled. Grace immediately slapped me without hesitation, then lovingly embraced Oscar. She drove him to the hospital, running several red lights along the way. Watching this, I couldn't help but recall the time last year when I had bled from gastric ulcers after working day and night to secure project investments. She only had her assistant send me a bottle of medicine. I bitterly smiled and picked up my electric scooter to head home. That night, Oscar updated his social media. Sometimes injury is a blessing. It's nice to have someone take care of you. The photo showed Grace feeding him, smiling warmly. I commented emotionlessly, wishing you both a lifetime of happiness. A moment later, Grace called me. I thought she would blame me for ruining the atmosphere, but instead, she spoke softly. Bruno, Oscar is just like that. Once he adjusts to the work environment, I'll make our relationship public. The title of chief scientist is just a formality. The project is still under your lead, and you're still in charge behind the scenes. I gave a cold, indifferent She had been playing this game for 5 years, slap me once, then offer a sweet treat. I was tired of it now. Sensing my indifference, she paused for a moment before saying, I've prepared a gift for you in the drawer. Consider it compensation. Please, don't make a scene. I opened the drawer and found a beautifully wrapped gift box, clearly labeled, for Oscar. So, it was for someone else. No wonder she seemed so guilty. I didn't say anything more and hung up the phone, too lazy to even open it. I threw the gift box into the trash. Then I took out my phone and called Mars Technology, a company that had been courting me. I've made my decision. I'll join next month. Chapter 2. Mars Technology, as a global leader in quantum computing, had been throwing me olive branches for years. Each offer was better than the last, but I had never wavered because I wanted to stay by Grace's side. On the phone, they promised me the position of vice president of RD, along with stock options, a villa, a luxury car, and everything else. A chill ran through me. In 5 years of marriage, I had received less attention from Grace than I did from a stranger company. I remembered when she casually said she wanted to become the queen of technology. So I gave up a lifetime tenure at a prestigious foreign university and chose to start from scratch with her. Countless sleepless nights spent debugging code, countless times rushing to meetings for the project. I wore my body out. In the end, I single-handedly lifted Grace, who knew nothing about quantum computing, to the position of CEO, while I quietly stayed in the background as a technician. I gave her everything she wanted, but in the end, I had become someone else's stepping stone. From now on, I would live for myself. That night, I booked my flight and wrote my resignation letter. I also sent the final technical parameters and testing plans for the quantum computer to Grace. Now, everything between her and me was settled. While packing my bags, I came across many dusty memories, couple watches, custom coffee mugs, lab photos, a celebratory video from the first paper we published. These were all things Grace had collected little by little, but I didn't know when they had gathered dust. Probably since the day Oscar returned to the country. We used to stay up late writing code together, celebrating project breakthroughs. She used to take care of me when I was sick, and we swore to change the world together. But then came the nights she didn't come home, and Oscar's academic discussions. Even when I was hospitalized due to overwork, she never came to visit. It turned out that true love could expire. I once asked her why, but all I got in return was her disdain and impatience. We've been together so long, and you still don't get it. Oscar is a top expert in the field. Of course, he should get more resources. Can't you grow up? Looking at the photo in my hand, I suddenly felt ridiculous and tossed it into the trash. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Grace. I have to accompany Oscar to an academic conference tonight. We'll celebrate our anniversary another time. I didn't reply, silently canceling the reservation for the Michelin restaurant and the custom projection confession. In the past, she would just cancel on me without notice. But this time, at least she told me in advance. Bored, I scrolled through videos, and the top trending topic was female CEO and scientist stroll under the moon, with a picture of Grace walking hand in hand with Oscar on campus. The comments were full of well wishes, and I absent-mindedly gave it a like. After a shower, I went to a bar to relax, and also to meet with a lawyer to draft a divorce agreement. When I came home in the early morning, I saw Grace standing at the door with a dark expression. So now you're learning to stay out all night. Chapter 3. I yawned, a bit surprised. She didn't spend the night out. In the past, whenever it involved an academic event with Oscar, she would never leave his side, almost as if she needed to be with him 24/7. I ignored her and walked toward the bedroom, but she grabbed my arm. After all these years of marriage, now you're learning to go to bars. I specifically canceled the seminar to come back and be with you. And this is how you treat me, Bruno. Do you even remember you're a husband? A husband? Grace could lie without batting an eye, and now she was talking to me about responsibility. It was our wedding anniversary, and she was walking around campus with another man. Yet she had the nerve to question my lack of responsibility. In the past, I used to stay up waiting for her to come home, but she would say I was too clingy and not independent enough, telling me to focus on the project instead. Now, when I stopped caring, she started getting obsessive. I half-heartedly responded, preparing to go to bed, but she forcefully pulled me up and stared at me coldly. I haven't taken a shower yet. You're going to stay with me. In the past, this request would have made me ecstatic. I would have carefully prepared the water at the perfect temperature and added her favorite essential oils. But now, I only found it ridiculous. Noticing the faint red marks on her neck, I felt disgusted and impatiently pushed her away. I've already showered. You can go by yourself. She looked at me in disbelief. It's just a little while on our anniversary. I told you. The seminar ran late. How can you be so inconsiderate? You went out drinking. Did I say anything? Why are you giving me this attitude? She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. In the past, I would have chased after her, apologized, and tried to cheer her up. Now, I just climbed into bed and slept soundly. The next morning, I slept until I naturally woke up and made myself a delicious breakfast. Just as I was about to eat, I realized Grace was home. In the past, she would never come back unless I apologized first. Reluctantly, I pushed the breakfast toward her, and her expression softened a bit. I noticed the lab access card lying on the table and froze. This was the highest level access card, able to enter all experimental areas. I had applied for it multiple times, but had always been rejected. Seeing my reaction, Grace awkwardly explained, "This is a birthday gift for Oscar. We'll talk about yours later." I felt like I had just fallen into an ice pit and laughed bitterly. Of course, she wouldn't think about me. I forced a smile, nodded, and handed her 2 documents. "Sign these." She impatiently took them. "You think just because I'm being nice, you can take advantage of me." The first resignation letter, she signed without even looking up. Though I had expected this, my heart still ached. For the second document, the divorce agreement, she signed it as well, but then realized something was wrong. Grace's expression changed dramatically as she threw the divorce agreement at me. "Bruno, you think you can threaten me with divorce? You think I won't sign it? Fine, I'll sign it for you. Is that what you wanted?" Chapter 4. I calmly said, "Thank you." Seeing my indifference, Grace became even more furious. "I'm giving you one last chance. Rip up the divorce agreement, and I'll pretend nothing ever happened." I ignored her and quietly put the agreement away. Grace trembled with anger. "Fine, Bruno, you've got guts. Don't come crawling back in a few days begging me to reconsider. With that, she slammed the door and left. She was sure I would chase after her, like I always had before, to make amends. But this time, she was wrong. I shrugged and rode my e-bike to the lab to collect my personal belongings. As I arrived downstairs, I saw the research building surrounded by reporters and crowds. After asking around, I learned that Oscar, in an attempt to rush a paper for publication, had skipped the final safety tests and launched the quantum computer. As a result, several financial institutions' data systems crashed, causing massive losses. It seemed they never bothered to read the testing plan I sent. This was the result of their own reckless actions, but it was no longer my concern. Oscar, surrounded by the reporters, saw me and immediately shouted, "He's the main person responsible for the project. The data security incident is his fault." I turned to leave, but Oscar blocked my way, running away after causing a mess. "It's not going to be that easy, Bruno. Do you even care about the clients who trusted our technology?" His words were full of righteous indignation, and the crowd around us was getting stirred up. "People like this fraud should be jailed. Compensate us. If you don't give us an explanation today, don't even think about leaving." Grace stood next to him, but she didn't even acknowledge my predicament. At that moment, I was utterly disillusioned. I looked at Oscar and pulled out the press conference video. At the press conference, Chairman Lee specifically said that you, Professor Oscar, were the chief scientist. Now that something went wrong, you're trying to shift the blame onto an ordinary employee. Do you think we, the workers, are just scapegoats? This immediately ignited the anger of the researchers around us. Exactly. It was clearly stated that Professor Oscar was in charge. Now that something went wrong, they want to pin it on us. Are we researchers just pushovers? In the heat of the moment, some people started digging up evidence online, and even someone called the police. Grace panicked and quickly tried to explain. "Everyone, please calm down. We will give you an explanation." She then turned to me. "Bruno, did you sabotage the system in the final stages because of jealousy? Could you really do something like this?" I smiled but didn't speak. She became even more agitated. "You need to fix the system right now, or I'll fire you." I shrugged. "Why should I?" Grace stood her ground. "Because you're an employee of the company, and it's your responsibility. You've been part of the whole project. You have an obligation." I smiled and shook my head, tossing the resignation letter she had signed in front of her. "Sorry, I'm no longer an employee of your company." Chapter 5. Grace stared at me in shock. "Impossible. When did I ever approve your resignation? Without my permission. How dare you resign on your own?" I sneered. She was always like this, used to giving orders, taking it for granted that I would revolve around her forever. After 5 years of marriage, she had never treated me as an equal partner. I had given up everything for her technological dreams, working tirelessly for 8 years, silently solving all technical problems behind her. The reason was simple: I loved her. But I had forgotten that one-sided sacrifice only leads the other person to take more and more. And in the end, she casually handed over all my years of effort to someone else. Now, I no longer loved her. She no longer had the power to make me bow down. So her threats now seemed so ridiculous. Grace, hysterical, shouted, "Who gave you permission to resign?" Oscar rushed over immediately, ripping up the still unopened resignation letter into pieces. "Grace, a core technical person like him needs your personal approval to resign. Since you had no idea, this resignation letter must be forged. You vile person. You think you can escape responsibility with these dirty tricks? Bruno, you're so naive." I wasn't fazed. I took out another resignation letter from my bag. "Tear it up if you want. I have plenty more. If you get tired of tearing them, I'll happily tear them with you. Also, I don't deserve the title of core technical person. The real core person is you. You managed to become the chief scientist without even understanding anything. Your skills must be impressive. If that's the case, why don't you fix the system yourself? A returned PhD. Can't even understand basic quantum entanglement. Can you?" Oscar's face turned dark, obviously stung by my words. Grace, seeing her so-called genius being humiliated by me, couldn't hold back her fury and charged at me. "Shut up. RD was always your responsibility. Now you're making sarcastic remarks. Do you know how hard Oscar worked to clean up your mess? Apologize to him immediately and go fix the system." I sneered. It was no surprise she was so eager to protect him. Looking at the 5 years we had been married, every time the project hit a bottleneck and people questioned it, not only did she never speak up for me, but she also publicly criticized my abilities. Yet, I naively thought she was motivating me. Seeing me remain silent, Grace took another step closer. "What are you waiting for? Go fix the system." I calmly showed her the resignation letter I had signed. "Chairman Lee, you might want to take a good look. This is your signature from this morning." Chairman Lee is a busy person, so it's understandable that he forgets small matters like this. After all, I'm just an insignificant nobody, hardly worth remembering. Grace's face turned pale as she stared at the signature in disbelief. This can't be. Chapter 6. Her words hung in the air as she grabbed the resignation letter from my hands and began to examine it carefully. I sneered. What's wrong, Chairman Lee? Want to rip it up too? Go ahead. I've got the original. I can print as many copies as you want. Only then did Grace have to face reality. I had no further ties with this cold-blooded laboratory. Bruno, the resignation letter you made me sign this morning was for your resignation. How has the lab wronged you? How have I wronged you? You're repaying kindness with betrayal like this. I was stunned by her shamelessness. She had the nerve to ask how she had wronged me. I was the one who built this quantum laboratory from scratch. And yet she handed over the highest level permissions and core projects to her genius professor, refusing to give me even the most basic experimental rights. How could she ask me where she had wronged me? I remembered questioning her when she made that decision. She said the lab was our joint effort, our mutual asset, and it wouldn't matter whose hands it was in. But she never once considered whether, as joint partners, it was necessary to consult me on such decisions. She never did. Grace had never considered me as her equal. To her, I had always been the subservient one, repaying kindness with betrayal. How much have I sacrificed for this lab? Do you even know? Even if you're too busy to care about someone like me, just ask anyone in the lab, anyone, even the cleaning lady. Ask them what I've given. I've sacrificed my health, and what did you give me in return? At the press conference, in front of everyone, you handed over 8 years of my hard work to someone else. Grace panicked. I didn't do that. Oscar is a top-tier expert. How is it better for the lab if he leads the project? Why can't you just be magnanimous? I raised my hands in mock surrender. I'm not magnanimous enough. Didn't I just step aside and give your genius professor a place? What? Still not satisfied? Grace shook with rage. You're making excuses. Since it was your project, you should see it through to the end. I laughed scornfully. Professor Oscar, isn't he a returned PhD with extensive knowledge? Can't he even fix this minor system glitch? I'm giving him the opportunity to show off his talents. And now he's blaming me. Oscar's face turned red, and the people around us began whispering. Colleagues shot him disdainful looks, and some even began to quietly mock him. His fragile pride couldn't take it. He quickly adopted a pitiful expression and said to Grace, Grace, it's okay. If Bruno doesn't want to, I can handle it. Grace looked at him with sympathy. Oscar, I know you're capable, but this is Bruno's responsibility. Why should you bear the burden? She then turned to me, her voice icy. Bruno, I'm giving you one last chance. Fix the system, or leave, or else. At this point, she hesitated. I didn't care and asked, or else what? Grace took a deep breath. Or else, I'll divorce you. Chapter 7. With her words, everyone in the room was stunned. What? Chairman Lee and Bruno are married. Oh my God, I had no idea after all these years. This is shocking. It was laughable. After 5 years of marriage, no one had known until the moment of divorce. I always wondered why Bruno always kept quiet. Turns out, it's because of this. If I were him, I wouldn't have tolerated it either. My wife giving my hard work to some young pretty boy. Exactly. Working overtime on experiments, only for someone else to take all the credit. Who could stand that? This lab is a joke. I don't want to work here anymore. While the crowd was shocked, their emotions were also growing increasingly agitated. Many of the old employees had worked their way up alongside me and were already dissatisfied with Grace's behavior. Now that they knew our relationship, their anger was only intensified, and many researchers immediately tendered their resignations. But Grace clearly didn't care about that anymore. She took a step toward me. Bruno, this is your last chance. Don't say I didn't warn you. I gave her a mocking smile. Chairman Lee, did you forget something? You already signed the divorce agreement this morning. Now you're using divorce to threaten me. Doesn't that seem a bit ridiculous? Grace's face turned pale. Bruno, don't push your luck. I'll pretend this morning never happened. If you go fix the system now, we're still married. As soon as she said that, the colleagues around us couldn't hold back anymore. Bruno, don't be foolish. A woman like that isn't worth it. Grace immediately pointed at the researcher who spoke. You won't be coming to work tomorrow. The researcher sneered. If it weren't for Bruno secretly giving us bonuses and bringing us onto projects, I would have left a long time ago. Working myself to the bone for just over $10,000 a month, and I have to put up with your attitude. A PhD who doesn't even understand quantum entanglement is telling us what to do. I've had enough. As soon as he finished, other researchers also began handing in their resignations, including several key technical members. Grace was stunned, and it took her a while to snap back to reality, panic creeping into her voice. Anyone who resigns won't get a single penny in compensation. At those words, the crowd burst into laughter. What difference does it make whether you pay us or not? Grace became even angrier. If you all resign now, you'll be held responsible for the system failure. At this, the anger of the crowd reached its peak. Responsible? Let me tell you, the last bit of debugging work could have been done by anyone here. But someone had to act all high and mighty. With that, everyone turned their gaze toward Oscar. He insisted everything had to go according to his plan. Yet he skipped even the most basic safety tests. And now he wants to blame us. I'll sue you in court if you keep talking like that. Exactly. Bruno's plan was solid. But he changed it all just to rush out a paper, skipping essential procedures. Now something's gone wrong, and he wants to pin the blame on us. Do you really think we're pushovers? One by one, people started pulling out evidence, exposing it right then and there. Seeing this, the client representatives who had been watching from the sidelines finally understood the truth. They apologized to me and immediately picked up their phones to call the police. Seeing this unfold, Oscar tried to escape but was quickly surrounded by the crowd. Chapter 8. Is this how you're leaving? How irresponsible. Professor Oscar, you dare to alter the plan without even understanding the most basic quantum error correction. Is this your academic level? Surrounded by the crowd, Oscar could no longer pretend, and he hurriedly sought help from Grace. Seeing things taking a turn for the worse, Grace quickly stood in front of him. Everyone, calm down. We'll give you all an explanation. She then turned to me, her gaze sharp. Bruno, you must have sabotaged the system in the final stage, just out of jealousy for Oscar. You're doing this just to hurt him. I smiled but said nothing. She became even more agitated. You need to go fix the system right now, or else, I will never let you off the hook. I shrugged. Why should I? Grace responded confidently. Because you were involved in the entire project development. This is your responsibility. I shook my head with a smile and tossed all the documents she had signed in front of her. Sorry, I'm no longer part of the lab, and I'm certainly not your husband anymore. Grace was stunned, grabbing the documents in a frenzy. Bruno, you're doing this out of revenge. I turned and walked away, but this time she couldn't stop me, as the police had already arrived. After cooperating with the police, giving my statement, and providing evidence to prove my innocence, I was soon released from the police station. Even though Grace tried every possible way to stop me, it didn't change anything. As per the divorce agreement, I legally claimed half of the lab's assets. The remaining portion, Grace had to sell off to compensate the victims. In the end, everything settled down. Grace tried to pin all the blame on Oscar, thinking that would save her from the consequences. But the law is equal for everyone. Oscar turned on her, and in the end, Grace couldn't escape the consequences. In the final moments when the police took her away, she was still desperately pleading. Bruno, I really love you. Please, save me. I don't want to be apart from you. Sadly, I had grown tired of hearing such lies. I left her with only 4 words. Never again. Never again. That was the best closure I could give to everything I had given. Chapter 9. In the interview room at Mars Technology, I was presenting my research achievements. Mr. Bruno, your resume is impressive, but we've received some less than ideal news. The interviewer hesitated. I knew exactly what was coming. Sure enough, the door to the meeting room opened the next second. Wait. Grace's legal team barged in. This Mr. Bruno is suspected of leaking trade secrets, and we have already filed a lawsuit against him. I gave a small laugh and pulled out a stack of documents from my bag. Please take a look at these patent certificates. All of them are under my name. As for the other core technologies, they're listed in this resignation handover checklist. Each one confirmed by Chairman Lee's signature. The lawyers flipped through the documents, their faces growing increasingly grim. This can't be, Chairman Lee said. I interrupted him. Chairman Lee said, well, we have to thank her then. After all, these signatures were all personally signed by her this morning. The interviewers exchanged glances, and the skepticism in their eyes turned to admiration. After the interview, I unexpectedly ran into someone in the break room. Bruno, is that really you? Looking up, I saw Daniela, my former university classmate, now the head of the quantum communications department at Mars Technology. It's been a long time. I nodded politely. She enthusiastically pulled me into a conversation. I heard you're joining our department. That's great. I've been following your research, your paper on quantum entangled states. I kept my distance politely and responded briefly. The past hurt had made me wary of any close relationships. Soon after starting at the company, I was assigned to a project competing against my old lab. Grace, with Oscar, came for a technical exchange that was actually just a show of force. Bruno, don't think that just because you've left the lab, you're going to succeed. We've been working on this project for a long time, Oscar said smugly. I couldn't be bothered, so I turned and walked away. What's wrong? Afraid to take on the challenge? Grace called from behind. I didn't look back. Let's wait for the results. 3 months later, our technical proposal completely crushed theirs in the evaluation. Watching Grace's sour expression on the news, I felt no sense of satisfaction. Just then, Daniela came over with a cup of coffee. What are you looking at? Nothing. I turned off the news. She gave me a thoughtful look. Do you know what I admire most about you? I looked at her, confused. You never care about other people's opinions. You're always focused on the research itself. That's what a true scientist is. Her words left me stunned. Yes, that's what I had been striving for all along, the true essence of research. not the hollow fame. Gradually, I rediscovered my original passion. I spent every day in the lab, discussing problems with Daniela and the team, completely immersed in the pure world of science. Finally, in one experiment, we made a breakthrough. Bruno, we did it, my assistant shouted excitedly. Looking at the stable data on the screen, I smiled, a smile I hadn't worn in a long time. At that moment, I realized that what truly heals you is not the obsession with the past, but the hope for the future. Daniela brought me a cup of coffee. This breakthrough is worth celebrating. I took the coffee from her, and for the first time, I didn't find the new environment so hard to accept. Chapter 10. Next, we have Dr. Lisa from MIT, who will share with us the latest applications of quantum computing in the financial sector. At the International Quantum Computing Conference, I was listening half-heartedly to the host's introduction, but then, a clear and bright voice rang out, making me look up. Traditional financial risk control models have significant flaws, and the parallelism of quantum computing can perfectly solve this problem. The woman on stage was not wearing any makeup, but she radiated an intellectual aura. What captivated me most was the spark in her eyes when she spoke about the technical details. It was pure academic passion, free from any utilitarian motives. During the QA session, I couldn't help but raise my hand. Dr. Lisa, you mentioned the quantum annealing algorithm. Does it have any issues with collapse when processing high-dimensional data? Her eyes lit up. This gentleman has asked a very professional question. In fact, we've already found a solution. After the session, she approached me on her own. Dr. Bruno, I've read your paper, and your insights into quantum entanglement are unique. I was somewhat surprised. I hadn't published much in recent years. She seemed to sense my confusion. It was one of your papers from university. I've been following your work ever since. The pure academic exchange made me relax unconsciously. In the following days of the conference, we often gathered to discuss issues, ranging from quantum computing to the philosophy of physics. She never mentioned anything about my past, as though she was only interested in my views on research. It wasn't until she told me she was returning to her home country that I realized I had started to subconsciously look forward to our conversations. This feeling was dangerously unfamiliar. Bruno, I'm heading back home. Before she left, she invited me for coffee. Good luck on your journey, I replied, pretending to be calm. She smiled. Do you know what I admire most about you? Your talent, I joked. No, she said seriously. It's your sincerity. Despite everything you've been through, your love for research has never changed. That kind of purity is rare. I was stunned. It seemed she knew everything. You investigated me? I asked. No, she replied softly. It's just that the academic circle is small. Then she added, but I prefer to trust my own judgment. Her words touched something deep within me. 2 months later, she returned to work in her home country. Our relationship blossomed naturally, with no forced effort. I like the way you focus, she said, and I like your honesty. Even knowing my past, your past shaped who you are today, she said, looking at me earnestly. And I only care about the person you are now. At that moment, I suddenly understood. True healing doesn't come from forgetting the pain, but from meeting someone who understands you. She didn't need me to be perfect, nor did she care about my past. She simply stood by my side quietly, making me believe again that pure feelings truly exist in this world. It turns out, letting go of the past is that simple. You only need to meet someone who makes you willing to start over.